Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Govardhana Radha Govardhana Shri Radhe. Jayam Vishapad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gata Shri Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Primskaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Mahapo Navadvip Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Gangamai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we're reading from the Caitanya Caritamrita, the Adi-lila, chapter 10, and up to text number 116. It's on the wall. Rama Dasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Rama Dasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Shola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavanchi Sola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavansi Ramadasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Sola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavansi Ramadasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Sola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavansi. Anybody else could chant? Ramadasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Sola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavansi Ramadasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Sola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavansi Ramadasa Abe Rama Sakya Prema Rashi Sola Sangera Kasta Tuli Ye Kari Lavansi Do the word for word. Ramadasa Abhirama. Of the name Ramadas Abhiram. Sakya Prema. Friendship. Rashi. Great volume. Sola Sangira. Of 16 knots. Kasta. Wood. Tuli. Lifting. Ye. One who. Karila. Made. Vanchi. Flute. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ramadas Abhiram was fully absorbed in the mallow of friendship. He made a flute of a bamboo stick with 16 knots. Purport. Abhiram was an inhabitant of Kanakula Krishna Nagara. It's a nice name. Kanakula Krishna Nagara. So, I know it's a very short purport, but Ramadas Abhiram is quite a significant personality, so I thought we shouldn't just gloss over it and move on to the next few verses. That there's a lot of information about Ramadas Abhiram, so we will definitely honour Ramadas Abhiram by churning the ocean of nectar about his personality. So, Jai Jai Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Jai Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Jai Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, Ramadas Abhiram, very ecstatic personality. Omagana Shrimanasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuamidhamna Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, so in the Gaura Gonadish Dipika by Shivananda Sain's son, Kanipurna Sain, he, as you know, he talks about who these different personalities are in Gaura Lila, who they actually are in the Krishna Lila from Vrindavan. So it's explained by Kanipurna saying that this Abhiram Thakur is actually one of the 12 principal cowherd boyfriends of Krishna. So he is Sridham in Krishna's Vrindavan Lila. So as we talk about when Krishna comes to the material world, he comes with all of his associates and paraphernalia. So they all come to this material world. So the Ramadas Abhiram is not, he's from the spiritual world, he's not from this world. So when we hear about these personalities, we develop an appreciation for who these characters are from the transcendent realm. So we shouldn't just brush over them, because it's when we read this section of the Chaitanya Caritamrita, there's so many names that we're hearing about as branches in the tree of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we should try and develop an appreciation and understanding of who these people actually are, because they're very, very significant, transcendent personalities. So it's explained that Abhiram Thakur is perhaps the most prominent follower of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So it's interesting that he's listed as a branch of the Lord Chaitanya tree, but he's actually a very prominent, probably the most prominent follower of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So his pastimes are described in simple Bengali verse by his disciple Sri Tilak Ramdas. So Sri Tilak Ramdas is a disciple of Ramadas Abhiram, and he's written a book which is called Sri Abhiram Lilamrita. And he actually explains this, Sri Tilak Ram explains how he was able to write this book. He explains that my guru Abhiram Thakur came to me while I was resting, while he was sleeping, so in a dream, and said, wake up, O disciple, hear my words. I want you to write about my pastimes. I touched my head to my guru's lotus feet, and at that time all of his pastimes appeared to me. So this is one of the mystical occurrences within the bhakti realm is that the spiritual master may appear in many forms to the disciple. So in this case, Ramdas Abhiram has appeared as a disciple and has instructed him to write about his pastimes. Just like we know even with our Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his spiritual master appeared to him several times, I believe in dreams, telling him to take sannyas. And I think Prabhupada said that initially when he was, at the time when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was appearing, he was a householder with responsibilities. He was running a business and he had children to maintain and so forth. And so I think he explains that when he first heard this dream from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he thought, this is horrible. Taking sannyas, renouncing his household life and then taking sannyas. He thought this was very, very unpalatable. But obviously Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was very persistent and appeared to him another 1 or 2 times telling him the same thing, to take sannyas. So dreams about the spiritual master aren't ordinary dreams. And some of you may be very fortunate enough to have dreams about the spiritual master, or sometimes devotees have dreams about Krishna as well. So yes, these things do happen. Not ordinary dreams. So there's some nice pictures there. That's a picture depicting Ramdas Abhiram, and this is Ramdas, one of these personalities here, one of the 12 principal cowherd boys. And when you read the Krishna book, you can read about all these wonderful pastimes with Krishna and Vrindavan and the different intimate leelas he has with his friends in the Sakya-ras, this mood of friendship. So this is Ramdas Abhiram. So we continue on. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, there is a small town called Kanakula Krishnagar in Hooghly district where the temple in which Sri Abhiram Thakur worshipped is situated. So that picture on the left hand side, this is actually the temple that Ramdas Abhiram would worship within. So Abhiram Thakur lived with his wife Malini in the village of Kanakul Krishnagara. The temple is located in Krishnagar, near the Kula, or the bank of the Kana Dwarkareshwar river. Therefore, this place is celebrated as Kanakul Krishnagar. The deity in the temple is known as Gopinath and is extremely charming to behold. So on the right-hand side, that's the picture of this Gopinath deity that was worshipped by Abhiram. So his worshipful deity, Shri Gopinath, who after first appearing to him in a dream manifested himself in Kanakul Krishnagar. The legend has it that he appeared in a dream to Abhiram Thakur, more dreams, and said, this is Gopinath speaking, I'm within the earth here, please take me out and worship me. Abhiram thus excavated in that place and found within the womb of the earth the all-enchanting form of Sri Gopinath Ji. That place where the deity was found became known as Ram Kund. In the place where Sri Gopinath invented himself, a lake was formed, and the water contained therein was as sweet as nectar. Whoever bathed or drank that water became beside himself with ecstasy. Thereafter, this land has become famous as Ram Kund. Having heard of these divine pastimes of Sri Gopinath, an incessant flow of people descended on that place like the waters of the Ganges river. That's from the Bhakti Ratnakar Taranga. Has anybody been there before, to this place? No? Yeah. Sounds like it's still there. I mean, obviously that photo was with ISKCON devotees visiting the site, so it's obviously still there, so you can still visit this place today. And I think Dada Vyasapriya Maharaj was commenting when he gave his class last weekend on the Caritamrita that these records are very historically accurate within the Caritamrita, so it's very exact descriptions where these places are located now, and you can still visit these places. So devotees are generally very inclined to visit these pastime places of the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're very fortunate now that a lot of these holy places are becoming more and more known to the ISKCON world, all these wonderful sacred places. I know was that Indra Swami was just in Orissa, and he was visiting all of the temples off the beaten track in Orissa, and he visited, I didn't know this place existed, but somewhere in Orissa there's like a replica of the Jagannath Mandir, so it's a scaled down version of the Jagannath temple. So Indra Swami visited there with some of his disciples, and our Ananta Vrindavan Prabhu made a nice video about his visit to this sacred place. So very wonderful that we can still take part in these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by visiting these places where his intimate associates appeared and had their pastimes. So yeah, very, very fortunate. The temple also houses deities of Rajavallabha, Gopal and a Shalagram Shila, which you can probably see on the bottom left-hand side of the picture is a Shalagram Shila, which are still worshipped there today. So at the doors of this temple stands a large bakula tree, which is known as Siddha Bakul, and the place is popularly called Siddha Bakul Kunj. This is the place where Abhiram Thakur first sat down when he arrived in the village. In Kanakula Krishnagar, there is a big festival held every year in the month of Chaitra, March through to April, which is probably around this time of the year, on the Saptami of the dark fortnight, Krishna Saptami. So there's obviously another Siddha Bakul, famous Siddha Bakul in Jagannath Puri, where Haridas Thakur would reside. And this tree is still there, the Siddha Bakul tree, and you can visit there because Haridas Thakur was able to see the chakra, the big chakra above the Jagannath Mandir, because he didn't want to enter into the Jagannath Mandir because he considered himself too fallen coming from a Muslim background. So he would stay in the Siddha Bakul, this place, and he would take darshan of this chakra of Lord Jagannath. And it's explained that the Siddha Bakul tree came from a piece of wood or a toothpick that Lord Chaitanya had used, and he threw it into the ground, and this wonderful tree manifested, the Siddha Bakul tree. And I know some devotee, I'm not sure who it is, said they got a branch from this, like a piece of wood from the Siddha Bakul tree, and they carved some beautiful deities out of it. Who was it, Ajita?
I actually got a branch and make some beads, chanting beads.
Some japa beads. Wow. Yeah, so there.
We sold them.
And as well, Prabhu, Lalanath Prabhu, you have beads from, you chant on them. Can we see these wonderful beads? You have them with you, or?
I keep them at home. So
okay.
I have my temple beads.
Very nice.
So I forget things all the time.
Probably a good safety measure. Yeah, so this is a very sacred tree. You're very, very fortunate. This is a tree that came from the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This particular tree we're hearing about, Siddha Bakul Kunj, has obviously a different background, but Bakula means a tree. So it looks like it may still be there. There's plenty of foliage around this temple by the looks of it. So that's a bit about the temple of and the deity of Ramdas Abhiram. So Ramdas Abhiram also had, he's a very mystical personality, and he had a lot of very uncommon powers. So it's explained that Sri Abhiram Thakur was a very rigorous and powerful acharya. He engaged in preaching on the orders of Lord Nityananda and saved many atheists and people opposed to the Vaishnava religion. Abhiram Goswami possessed a fiery temper and great spiritual power. The atheists trembled whenever they saw him. He was intoxicated as though he had been possessed by Nityananda, and his enchanting mercies are famed throughout the world. That's also from the Bhakti Ratnakara. Here's a quote from Bhakti Ratnakara. O Srinivas, how much more can I say? Abhiram descended into this world in order to deliver it. Taking birth in a Brahmin family, he became a scholar in all the scriptures and was an unequalled musician, not only in song and playing musical instruments, but in dance also. He married at Nityananda Balaram's request. His wife Malini is also indescribably powerful. One day, while in a state of rapture in remembrance of Sri Krishna, Abhiram Thakur, in the mood of a cowherd boy, desired to play the flute. In the madness of ecstatic love, he began to search in all directions for one. Explained he would also carry a little bamboo flute with him as well, in the mood of a cowherd boy. Then he saw before him a large trunk of a tree, which not even 16 men could lift. Out of this he fashioned a flute and began to play it. Ramdas, one of the chief branches, this is from the verse, another verse in the Caritamrita. Ramdas, one of the chief branches, was full of fraternal love of Godhead. He made a flute from a stick with 16 knots. The reference in the Caritamrita is also found in the Gora Gonadeshtapika, which says that Abhiram Thakur lifted a log which normally would have taken 32 people to lift. The Bhakti Ratnakara states it would have taken hundreds of people to lift. After lifting it, he held it like a flute. So you can see he had this flute, mixed flute. So being kirtan playing this flute, and devotees would have to duck down and playing this flute. So uncommon. He held in his hands a piece of flute that 100 men could not move, in the way that one holds a flute. So it's explained he would carve out 16 notches in this big trunk, like a flute. And so also it's explained that Sri Abhiram Thakur possessed an amazing whip, which he named Jai Mangala. Anyone who was touched by this whip would immediately experience the transcendental ecstasies of Krishna Prem. One day Srinivasacharya visited Abhiram Thakur, who gave him 3 lashes with that whip. So he'd like to, get the whip going. So one day Srinivasacharya visited Abhiram Thakur, who gave him 3 lashes with that whip. Abhiram's wife Malini stopped her husband from hitting him, saying, "Thakur, don't beat him anymore. Restrain yourself. He's just a boy. He'll become overly excited by the touch of your whip and won't be able to tolerate the effects of divine love." So in the meantime, Srinivas had become completely overwhelmed with Krishna Prem from the hits of this special Jai Mangala whip from Abhiram. Srinivasacharya was very dear to Abhiram and received many blessings from him. Though not his initiated disciple, he was like a disciple to him. And it says that this Jai Mangala whip is still actually found in this Krishnagara temple that we saw the picture of. That same whip is still apparently kept there. So the Jai Mangala sounds like a very ecstatic whip held by Abhiram Das Thakur. We shouldn't imitate this though. Some safety advice. We probably won't have the same effect if we hit people with a whip. It would probably have the opposite effect, would put people off coming to Krishna consciousness. The devotees were greatly astonished whenever they saw him perform such superhuman feats. According to one legend, whenever Abhiram Thakur paid his obeisances to a stone or statue, if it was not a Vishnu Shila, or Shalagram Shila, or a Giriraj Shila, or a consecrated deity, it would crack or be reduced to powder. Such was the power of Abhiram's obeisances. Non-devotees were also unable to tolerate his pranams. Nityananda's son, Virachandra Goswami, and daughter Ganga Devi survived his obeisances, which confirmed their divinity. These things are written in ashtakas composed by Abhiram Thakur in their name. Another time, Abhiram Thakur came to Sri Khand wanting to meet Raghunandan Thakur. Mukundadas was aware of his reputation and thus told the Thakur that Raghunandan wasn't there. Feeling disappointed, Abhiram departed. When Raghunandan heard that Abhiram Thakur had come to meet him, he ran to catch up with the Thakur. Finally, he met him at Bordanga, where they danced together in ecstasy. When Raghunandan was dancing his nupur, his ankle bracelet, came off and fell down at Akai Hut, where Kaliya Krishna Das used to do his bhajan. This ankle bracelet is still being worshipped along with Kaliya Krishna Thakur's deity at Kavi, not far from Katwa. Yeah, so it's a nice thing when you visit a lot of these holy places, that there's a lot of the paraphernalia from these personalities are still there. So many places which have got remnants left over from many great personalities. I was thinking of Indraduma Swami when he was visiting Vrindavan, and he was given it's like a top made of tulsi beads. I can't remember who it was from, one personality, and he had this tulsi bead made of a jacket like a Lalnath Prabhu was wearing. What are those called again? Like a short sleeve jacket or something? A vest, yeah. There's a vest made of tulsi beads, and so Indraduma Swami was maybe gifted it, or was allowed to wear this particular vest when he visited this temple. And obviously when you visit Jagannath Puri, there's so many pastime places there, and there's different places which have the paraphernalia left over from Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. His padukas, like we see Srila Prabhupada has his padukas, his wooden clogs just below his asana there. So there's also a pair of those held in the Gambhira temple in Jagannath Puri, and they worship these padukas every day, and they offer chandan to it. So it has a coating of chandan over these padukas, which helps preserve the wood. There's also a water pot that was used there by Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Also, I was just thinking, when you visit Radha Kund, There's the ashram or bhajan kutir there of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and there's a cane, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was famous. He used to say that we should beat the mind in the morning, right? So when you visit this place, the pujaris there will pick up this cane and touch it to your head, like beating your mind into submission, you know, controlling the mind. So lots of wonderful places to visit when you're in the holy dhams that have these paraphernalia to give us remembrances of these great personalities. So many different bhajan kutirs in Vrindavan. When you visit Vrindavan, so many samadhis, bhajan kutirs of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, of the acharyas, the author of Caitanya Caritamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has a bhajan kutir there. So many wonderful places. So the descendants of the disciples of Abhiram Thakur are still within the districts of Hugli and Bankura, at Krishnagar, Atma, Vishnupur and Koltapur. I remember when we were when myself and my wife, we went to, in 2002 it must have been, we went to India together and we visited Jagannath Puri, went to Orissa, and then we rode our bikes out to Dandabanga, which is the place where Lord Nityananda broke Lord Chaitanya's sannyasi rod. And there was allegedly a descendant there, I think his name was Haridas, who was a descendant of Shivananda Sain, and he was staying at this Dandabanga Mandir, which is looked after by some disciples of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So there are still descendants there today in these places who come from these great personalities as well. So it's mentioned here that some of these disciples are still living within some of these districts within India. So those are some of the pastimes of Ramdas Abhiram's mystical powers, his whip, the Jai Mangala, and the potency of him paying his obeisances. So a very unique personality in the Chaitanya Lila. So there's lots of wonderful pastimes with Abhiram. So there's one famous pastime where Abhiram tests the sons of Lord Nityananda. As we heard about, that he could test the deity to see if it's actually genuine or not by paying his obeisances to it, and if it wasn't a genuine Shalagram Shila or genuinely installed Murti, then it would crack or crumble into small pieces. So some devotees are very fearful of the obeisances of Abhiram. On one occasion, Abhiram Thakur met Lord Nityananda on the bank of the Ganga, near to the home of Nityananda Prabhu. Nitai offered Abhiram a seat. They embraced and both sat down. This particular pastime is from the Madhavananda, who writes the Krishna Caitanya Bindu. I don't know if any of you here are familiar with him. Gopal Jew Productions. I think he's a disciple of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So he still puts out a regular newsletter called the Krishna Caitanya Bindu. So this particular pastime is from there. Nitai said, "Oh, brother Abhiram, what is your desire? Why have you come to my home?" Abhiram Thakur said, "I want to see your son." Hearing this, Nityananda became happy. However, when Nityananda Prabhu showed him his son, Abhiram offered obeisances to the child, and immediately the child died. When Nityananda Prabhu's wives, Vasudha and Janava, heard the news, they both fainted. Nityananda then placed the body of the child in the Ganga, and they all took bath. Sometime later, another child was born, and again Abhiram Thakur came. As before, when Abhiram offered his obeisances, the child died. Everyone was astonished, thinking, what is Abhiram's purpose? In this way, every time a child was born, Abhiram would come, offer obeisances, and the child would die. I believe this happened about 7 times, apparently. Although Nityananda Prabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram, still, while acting out his human-like pastimes, he externally became very unhappy seeing all of his sons die. Therefore, when the next child was born, Nitai thought to himself, if Abhiram does not come, my child will live. Nityananda Prabhu invited many guests for the festive occasion, but he did not invite Abhiram Thakur. Seeing that Abhiram was not there, Advaita Acharya inquired from Nityananda, "Why have you not invited Abhiram?" Nityananda Prabhu replied, "Abhiram has made me bereft of sons, so I will not invite him. I've told all of the boatmen, do not bring him across the Ganga in their boats." During the time of the festival for the birth of Nityananda Prabhu's latest son, Abhiram and his wife Malini were staying at Krishnagar. Rakrishna Pandit came to see them. Malini offered him a seat, and Rakrishna inquired from Abhiram, "Nitai is performing a festival on the occasion of the birth of a son. You are the Pradhana Gopal, the leader of the cowherd boys. Is he inviting you or not?" Abhiram laughed and said, "No, he's not inviting me." Rakrishna humbly told Abhiram, "Without your presence, the ceremony cannot be performed properly. Although he is not inviting you, you should still go." "How can I go without an invitation?" Malini then said, "Abhiram is a rakal, a cowherd boy. Such cowherders have no abhiman, false ego. He is not finding fault with Nityananda Prabhu for not inviting him." Abhiram Thakur then told Rakrishna, "Oh brother, I'll go there later." After Rakrishna left, Abhiram conceived a plan. He bade Malini goodbye and started off saying, "Gaura Hari Ki Jai." He went to the bank of the Ganga and said to the boatman, "Take me across." The boatman looked at Abhiram Thakur and inquired, "Who are you, sir? Give me your name and then I'll start the journey. If I take the wrong person across, then Nityananda Prabhu will be very angry with me." Abhiram replied, "Why does he want to restrict this person from crossing?" The boatman said, "Nityananda Prabhu is miserable and lamenting for his lost children. He told me there is one person named Abhiram Thakur. He is very powerful. If he offers obeisances to my son, then the child will die." Saying this, Nityananda Prabhu told me not to bring that person across. "I think you are that same Abhiram Thakur." Out of fear of Nityananda Prabhu, the boatman then put water in his boat and made it sink. Hearing that Abhiram Thakur had come, all of the other boatmen also filled their boats with water and sank them. Abhiram Thakur then took some cloth and threw it in the river. The cloth floated, and sitting on it, Abhiram crossed the river. Don't mess with a mystic yogi. Seeing this, the people became astonished and ran to tell Nityananda Prabhu. Although Nitai became worried, he took all of the mahants, or the brahmanas and priests, who were present at the festival and went to meet Abhiram Thakur. Abhiram saw them all performing ecstatic kirtan and coming toward the bank of the Ganga to meet him. Abhiram then began playing his flute and he lost external consciousness. Tilak Ram says, "Who can understand Abhiram Thakur?" When they came together, Abhiram embraced all of them with ecstatic love while his hair stood on end. Nitai brought Abhiram to his home. Abhiram told him, "I am very hungry, please give me some prasad." Nitai gave him a seat in a room, and Vasudha and Janava happily brought him nice prasadam consisting of sweet rice, fancy rice and many opulent dishes. As much prasad as they brought, Abhiram ate it until he had finished everything in the house. Seeing that he had eaten everything, Nitai said, "Dandavats to your pastimes, who can understand you? In Adi-lila you are Sridham. Have you forgotten our loving relationship? In Braj we all shared prasad together. But now, forgetting all of that, you are taking all of the prasad alone. In Braja, we would always share whatever fruits we got. What sort of behaviour is this, that you are taking all of the prasad alone?" Abhiram listened and said, "My nature is that of a cowherd boy. First I take, then I give to others. My behaviour is that of Braja. Knowing my nature and activities in Braj, how can you say, 'I took all the prasad'? Go and see your pots." Then Abhiram performed Archaman. Nityananda Prabhu went to see the pots and found that double the original amount of prasad was there. Nitai then happily embraced Abhiram. Abhiram said, "Oh brother, you should feed all of the devotees." The devotees then happily took prasad and shouted, "Hari, Hari!" Finishing, they all performed Archaman. Then Nitai gave them tambula and a place to take rest. Abhiram Thakur said, "Nitai, you have celebrated the festival for the birth of your son. What sort of son do you have? Please bring him and I'll offer my obeisances to him." Hearing this, everyone became very worried. Nityananda Prabhu's wives, Vasudha and Janava, approached Abhiram and humbly said, "This time please give protection to our child. Don't let us be criticised for not having a son. If you offer obeisances to our son, then he will die. Every time this is what has happened. If you do this again, then we will also die." Abhiram said, "Why are you fearing? You don't understand. I'm offering my obeisances to test the child. If he is Swam Swarup, the Lord's personal manifestation, then he will survive my obeisances. Hearing Abhiram's words, Nityananda Prabhu became happy and brought his son before Abhiram. Abhiram Thakur offered his obeisances, and the child laughed. Abhiram became very happy and offered his obeisances a second and third time, just to test the child. He saw that this child was Jagat Priya, dear to the entire universe. Abhiram took the child on his lap and began to dance. He told all of the Mahants there, so that those who did not see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu could again have the opportunity to see him. The Lord has reappeared in the form of Veerabhadra Prabhu. Lord Balaram has appeared as Lord Nityananda Prabhu. As the Supreme Lord, he is Sarvagya, all-knowing, hence he certainly understood and in fact inspired the behaviour of Abhiram Thakur. The nature of the Lord is that he likes to see his devotees glorified more than himself. Therefore, to glorify his devotee Abhiram Thakur and also his son Veerabhadra Prabhu, Lord Nityananda inspired Abhiram Thakur to act in such an unusual way. And Veerabhadra Prabhu is actually an incarnation of Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, or the Super Soul. Sri Kavi Kanapur has written, the expansion of Lord Sankarshan, known as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, appeared in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes as Veerachandra Prabhu. Lord Veerachandra was non-different from Lord Chaitanya himself. So that's on the right-hand side is the Murti or the deity of this Veerachandra Prabhu, who's explained by Krishna Kavi Kanapur that he's non-different from Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who's non-different from Lord Chaitanya himself. So as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, Veerabhadra Prabhu is a Swayam Rupa, the plenary expansion of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has described, may Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sesha, Naga and all the Vishnus who lie in the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean and the ocean of milk, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. Gopal Guru Goswami was also similarly tested by Abhiram Thakur when he was only a small boy living with Mahaprabhu in Puri. By the mercy of Mahaprabhu, who invested his potency in Gopal Guru, the boy emerged unscathed. So that's another famous pastime of Abhiram Thakur. So mystical pastimes. I don't know if we've got time to go through it, but there is a backstory of how Sridham appeared as Abhiram Thakur. But I don't know, it's getting a bit late. Anybody have any things I'd like to add, or points or questions?
Can you give, this is a famous story it was found on Nityananda Govardhana.
Yeah, it's. It is, yeah. Yeah, he was left behind. I'll read it briefly. We've got another 5 minutes. So the legend about Sri Abhiram Thakur is as follows. One day in Dwapara Yuga, Krishna, Balaram and their cowherd friends were playing hide and seek in the woods of Vrindavan. Suddenly Krishna remembered Nadia and wanted to go there and enjoy some pastimes there. Taking Balaram and all their friends with him, he adventured in Navadvip. Somehow Sridham got left behind in Braja and remained in his hiding place in a cave. When everyone was performing Kirtan in Navadvip, Gauranga Mahaprabhu suddenly remembered Sridham. Horripilating in ecstatic love, he shed tears and called out, "Ah, Sridham, where shall I find you now?" And he fell unconscious. Nityananda Prabhu lifted him on his lap and brought him back to consciousness. When asked the reason for his distress, Mahaprabhu said, "Where is Sridham? Tell me where he is. I will go immediately and bring him." Mahaprabhu further revealed to Nityananda, "He is living in Vrindavan. Go there and bring him here quickly. I'm heartbroken in his absence." Pacifying Sri Gauranga, Nityananda Prabhu assured him that he would find Sridham and bring him back to Navadvip. Lord Nityananda set out and eventually reached Govardhan in Braj. Nityananda Prabhu was wearing his usual blue dhoti and angavastra and had his hair tied in a knot on the top of his head. Arriving near Govardhan Hill, Nityananda started calling out to Sridham again and again. Finally, Sridham came out of a cave to see who was calling him. Seeing the strange man dressed in blue, Sridham asked, "Who are you? Why are you calling me?" Nityananda introduced himself as Balaram and said that his name was previously Balai. However, Sridham had a doubt in his mind due to the different appearance and get-up of Nityananda. The stature of people in Dwapara Yuga was much taller than the people in this Kali Yuga. Sridham said, "If you are really Balai, then you should be as powerful as him. I shall clap my hands and run. If you are truly Balai, then you will be able to catch me." Hearing this, Nitai said, "Run if you must. Let's see how far you'll be able to go." Clapping his hands, Sridham said, "Ha, Balai, you will not be able to catch me." Sridham Gopal then tied his cloth tightly between his legs and in the manner of a wrestler and began to run around Govardhan Hill. After circumambulating Sri Giriraj 4 times, he looked back to see if Nityananda had caught up with him. Seeing that Nitai had kept pace, he thought, "This indeed is Balaram." Sridham said, "You must be tired, my friend. Take some rest now. Since I did not see your form of Balaram, I had some doubt in my mind. But you went around Govardhan Giri 4 times. Who else but Balai has the energy to do that?" Then he asked, "Tell me, why have you come looking for me?" Nityananda replied, "Krishna fell unconscious because he could not see you." Sridham asked, "Where has Krishna gone?" Nityananda replied, "Now everyone has gone to Navadvip. If you will accompany me, we will have some special pastimes there. Come quickly." Sridham said, "No, I shall not go. Going with you means that I'll have to live in someone's womb there. Considering the pain, who wants to live in that condition? I will not go." Nityananda said, "Just come with me and let us discuss the matter with Krishna. You can remain for now as you are." Sridham laughed and said, "All right then, carry me on your shoulders. All that running has made me tired." Nityananda said, "If I refuse, then you will go around telling everyone that I could not carry you because of the difference in our respective sizes. You are the chief amongst us cowherd boys. Please consider that you should be sympathetic about the happiness and distress of others." Sridham said, "Well, you and I are just the same. You very well know that when Krishna's side loses, I sometimes carry you on my back." Nityananda replied, "Everyone knows that you are subjugated by Krishna's love. None of the pastimes that happen in Vrindavan by day or night are unknown to you. All the other cowherd boys always sing your praises. Come now, let us go and meet Gauranga." All the 12 Gopalas, the 12 intimate associates of Lord Nityananda, who are expansions of the 12 primary cowherd boys, are Gopas in Krishna Lila. And 64 Mahants, 64 devotees that are considered to be the most confidential associates of Mahaprabhu, know you and sing your praises. Hearing these words, Sridham went and got dressed. He dressed himself in a very enchanting way. The beauty of his hair, dress and cowherder's paraphernalia was extremely attractive. Soon the two of them approached Navadvip. When Sri Gauranga heard that they had arrived, he embraced Sridham and started talking to him. "Where have you been? What kind of bliss were you in that I had to send Nityananda to bring you here?" Sridham asked, "Tell me the reasons for your appearance here. Why do you all have shaven heads and wear these rags? Seeing your condition breaks my heart." Mahaprabhu explained, "Sridham, with the end of Dwapara Yuga, the influence of Kali began. In this age, renunciation is proper." Sridham said, "I don't understand. Please explain." In the mood of Krishna, Mahaprabhu said, "There are 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. In Dwapara, Krishna is Swam Bhagavan. In Kali Yuga, he incarnates as Sri Caitanya. Now, in the beginning of Kali Yuga, I shall reveal this truth, which is also mentioned in the Shastras. You should know that my form as Krishna Chaitanya is the very same as my form of Krishna. Adi-lila and Krishna Lila are one. In Adi-lila, I and my associates have assumed the role of devotees and are relishing the mellows of love of Krishna. Now my name is Krishna Chaitanya, and from today you will be known as Abhiram." Nityananda Prabhu called everyone and smiled and said, "From today he will be known as Abhiram. We have kept this name since it indicates there is no difference between Sridham and me. Abhiram equals to be known as Ram." So that's the pastime of Sridham appearing as Abhiram. So anyway, if anyone has any quick questions, otherwise we can wrap it up and take prasad. Jai. Ram Das Abhiram Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.